So, NRGFPV here, I'm being followed by my cat Hans who wants some food. But anyway, that's not the story of this video. Today's video I'm doing a bit about my build desk, and it's all its glory. Actually, I'll take a step back so you can see it all. It's a bit full on, but anyway. I'm doing a lot of electronics lately and got some good tools. Good old oscilloscope and my soldering iron. They're not the best, but they get me through pretty much everything I need. Lots of downlight, lots of work room. All my planes around me. But the one thing I don't have is a bench power supply. Benchtop power supply to do random voltages on the fly. So what I am going to do is a review on a board that I purchased off of Banggood. This little unit here will do 5 volts through to 32 volts. And that arrived after a long wait, as per usual. But anyway, I got a case, some banana plug bits, a toroid transformer, and a full bridge rectifier. So I'm going to do a build time lapse and then explain all the pros and cons and what I reckon of this circuit. Also run through some of the stats on about it that it comes with. But overall it's a bit chintzy and I don't like paying for anything full price, so we'll wait and see if this is worth it or not. Plug this in so you can see. Turn it on. So it is working, but the input here, I'm getting 46.67 volts out of two 15 amp coils supposedly. So I'm a bit confused by that. And in saying that, it is only supposed to have 40 volts going in. I've tested this, it is working. It will output a set voltage. So as you can see at the top here, we've got 5 volts set and it's outputting 5 volts, which is exactly right. And that can be trimmed. So drop that down to 4 volts and the output drops to 4 volts, so bang on. Hasn't got any load, so there's no amperage draw or wattage being calculated. Turn that off. So to stop this 40 plus volt, to limit this 46 volts to 40 volts, I've looked up a little circuit to try and limit this incoming voltage, and it's come down to a LM317K regulator and a trim pot to set that, 5K. I'm gonna just put it all together on a bit of proto board. So some 240 ohm resistors to build a voltage divider with the trim pot, and some little 1 farad electrolytic capacitors for the input and output stages to help get rid of the regulator's voltage ripple. And then I'm going to put all of that together on the proto board and then put that in line with the output from the bridge rectifier, and put a slightly larger capacitor on the proto board as well to then smooth that voltage coming out of that before it hits the regulator on the proto board. So that'll be tonight's project. You want to hop up on my lap? Oh, look after little lady and get this soldered up and into the circuit. All in one tonight hopefully. Dokely. So it's been a few days on now since I was working on this, and I've done a bit more fiddling and testing, and the as per usual the workbench gets back to its state of utter chaos, but all part and parcel. The power supply, the last bit I left off on was the regulator I was working on was doing its job to some extent, which was really good. But upon further testing, the second I put any load on it, the voltage bridge that I created in here, the voltage divider, to set the input for the regulator out to the control board, was getting quite hot. Just the little resistors were getting quite hot. So I've had to temporarily supplement it with a 1k ohm resistor off my resistor wheel here. Unfortunately, I don't have an actual 1k resistor to put in place, so I'll do the actual review with that in place, but essentially that's what it'll have when it's finished, and that's what I've done all my testing with since then, and it's been perfectly fine. The power supply itself, for a quick review now, I'm pretty happy. I've got the, well, after all the troubles with the toroid and the voltage coming out at 46 volts, instead of around the 40 volt mark that I sort of expected, and building that voltage reg at the back has, well, I've learnt a little bit, definitely, but it's now working, it's doing its job. So let's fire it up and I'll do a bit of a review about the unit itself. It's a nice little splash screen, don't know what it says, but anyway. It's not bad. There is a pretty in-depth menu setting in here, so you can set your voltage and your amperage. There are a few other things like over voltages and over amperage and over wattage that you can preset for it to be a safety. Plus your screen brightness. Don't need it. It's sort of set and forget stuff, and I thought that to set the voltage I'd have to come into here every single time. But you don't, luckily. You can just press the V1 button up here, and she brings the cursor up here, and then you can use the jog wheel to go across and set your voltage. Let's set this to 5 flat. Now, also, you can press the M2 button, or the the A and down arrow, where that's a, sorry, I said V1 before, but there's a V and one up arrow, or M1 button. But if you press the A button, the cursor comes over here to your amperage, and you can predefine your amperage. So let's drop that down to 1 amp. Actually, no, let's take that a bit higher just for the example's sake, so it's not limiting. And you can turn it on. I've put a computer fan on here just as a dummy load. Also got my multimeter on here just so I can actually monitor the voltage properly. So when I turn it on, preset for 5 volts. Now, amperage isn't a problem. As you can see, I've got it set for 10 amps, and my power supply can definitely give 200 watts. But at the moment, it's only pulling half a watt at 12 milliamp, so 10 milliamp. So really not that much. And the computer fan is spinning, but for some reason the voltage isn't reaching the 5 volt mark. It's not far off, but Oh, and what it's saying here, the 4.98 sort of range, 4.96, is replicated by the multimeter, so that is correct. But unfortunately, it's not pushing the full 5 volts. So if you go in here and you tell it to give a little bit more, you can compensate for that. I don't know why. It's not balancing that to a flat 5 when you tell it to go to 5, but a few millivolt out's not really going to hurt for anything I'm working on, and even then you can compensate for it once you know the fact that it's not quite right. You can also in real time jog this right the way up in voltage. Better not do that for too long. I've only got a 12 volt fan on there. 11.8, not bad considering it's set for 12. Let's bring this up a bit. .12 volts flat, but the set is 12.18, so that's a bit odd. I don't fully understand why it's doing that, but in saying that, it is cheap, it is chintzy, and it is workable as long as you know that that fault is there. Alright, let's turn this off. This little circuit with the toroid transformer, bridge rectifier and the voltage regulator to stop this receiving 36 volts and only having to stop this receiving 46 volts from the power regulator and only receiving 40 volts is good. It's exactly what it needed. I've ended up trimming it down a little bit further to 34.64 volts, which is more than enough for anything I need on the bench as well. And I can still get the 32 volts out that is the maximum spec of this thing. So yeah, I'll be putting a 1K resistor in here once I get one in the next few days, closing the unit up and putting it up on the shelf. I'm pretty happy with it for the little amount of money I put into it. I hope you enjoyed my review, and yeah, enjoy.